Oh,
and
yeah.
then trying to put a nice over in front of it. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
They're just doing things.
I think the carpet has something sticky on it.
Oh,
You know, the wheels just don't glide.
huh. That's what I do every week. See where our seating
Hello.
assignment is. How are you?
Can't tell you how glad I am you make it.
What's that?
Can't tell you how glad I am you make it.
Yeah, that's all right. We should.
There's a clock there.
Yeah, they took that
Must
off
have
the wall.
painted the place or something.
Must have painted the place or something.
Then Jim does it, all the structural.
Looks bare.
Jim Shiner's does it.
It's cost cutting measures.
Right, he does some inspection, he was your,
There's the,
focus
say
is
the
on.
salad.
You must be out in Jose.
Cupid romance.
How you doing, Corey?
I'm doing fine. I was rushing tonight.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I was at the house, but I was working on a drawing, trying to get a plan drawn up, and I lost track of the time.
I was in the shop. Robin comes out. She says, "We got a meeting in about 20 minutes." So, yeah.
Nobody eats dinner before these meetings, do you?
Nope.
Now,
I don't either.
That's because we want to be lean and mean.
You don't come across these meetings.
Yeah, it's usually something like that.
You know, this looks like repetition to
Oh,
me.
for the
About that.
one that took so long.
Cause I have a note.
They had it
No,
on
it
there.
isn't though.
It's an older one.
We
I thought
wrote it on
that it's
the
usually
list.
trust Mother's Day or something.
Had some corrections, it had
Anyway, I have lots of really cheaper ones.
I wonder if they haven't got them completely changed.
And I was like, yeah, go to a thrift store. You know, or you.
I don't know if it's something that we need to mention or not.
Well, you feel free to bring it up, no doubt.
Any of the books.
Okay.
We're it, aren't we? Just the four of us.
I'd also like to know on the posting for rezoning. How long is this planning
Right.
post? How long do they have to-
No, you get to wear it.
It just,
I know, but what is it?
what is the person
Yeah,
who
it's
has
for
a
3 days,
3
yeah.
days prior.
Why are you so tight to the mic?
Oh, she's back there.
I'd like to know how it's
But you can wear it, you'll look cool, I can see you can wear it. So, there you go.
However you can fit it on your.
Did you pick up your placard here?
I didn't this week. I read it on the internet and I didn't even print one out. It was just not.
Yeah. Well, I was called like Thursday night before they closed and I couldn't get it. So I thought they would read it
I wonder why they have the
at town hall here. So I came here Friday night and she said that she could only print out 3 pages and it's 33 pages long. Oh my God, I'm gonna read it all night. Well, these maps, for some reason, stymied the copy machine, the computer itself.
Okay.
And so it stopped printing when it got to those maps and wouldn't go any further. So then she had to let it rest and it would spit out 3 pages at a time. And then 3 more, and then 3 more. I was here an hour. You know, and I had an important lunch at 12 o'clock. Important to me. But anyhow, I made it everything. But then I couldn't make out what it was. You know, I couldn't put it together so that it made sense. So I went by the office and at least,
Okay.
then I could make it out. Okay.
I'd like to call the meeting to order for the May 5th, 2015 zoning meeting. Mr. Pasiak, would you lead us in the pledge?
All stand, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Sloan?
Here.
Hi, Commissioner Mendoza.
Here.
Commissioner Pasiak?
Here.
And Vice Chair Merritt.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, would like to look at the minutes from the April 7th regular meeting. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the minutes as they're written?
I don't.
Corey?
No. The only comment I have,
Move your microphone.
the only comment I have is that the September 16th meeting was a special meeting, not a regular meeting, as they note in the drafts of the April 7th meeting that it was a regular meeting, it was a special meeting. And as of today, the minutes of the special meeting are not on the town website for public review.
It also says there was a motion in there that says that the meeting, the minutes will be corrected to state that it is a special meeting and not a regular meeting. So that was in the minutes. Any more concerns or questions? I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 7th, 15.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, item 4B, consideration and action to approve the April 7th, 2015 study session minutes. Is there anybody here who has any questions on those?
I didn't find any discrepancies.
Corey, Gary?
Good.
I move the minutes of the study session of April 7th be approved.
A second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Okay, staff reports.
Staff has no additional reports.
No staff report. Thank you. Okay, I would like to open the public hearing for item 6A, request by property owner to rezone parcel 306-29-05A50A, comprised of approximately 7.39 acres from agricultural residential 5-acre minimum AR5 to single-family residential 2-acre minimum SR2 for the purpose of splitting the property into 2 parcels.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before you have an application by Todd and Lisa Corbell to rezone 7.39 acres of subject parcel 306-29050A. The subject parcel is located in Section 27, Township 16 North, Range 2 West, at approximately 743 South Road 1 West. The property is currently zoned agricultural residential with a 5-acre minimum, AR5. The applicant would like to rezone to single-family residential with a 2-acre minimum, SR2. Rezoning to SR2 will allow the applicants to split the property into 2 separate parcels. They would like to sell proposed parcel A, where the single-family residence and horse stables are located, in order to build a new single-family residence on proposed parcel B. The request to rezone is not materially detrimental to persons residing or working in the vicinity adjacent to the property, neighborhood, or to the public welfare. The SR2 zoning is in conformance with the zoning classifications in the immediate area and matches the existing use. For these reasons, staff recommends forwarding this application on to Town Council with the recommendation of approval. If the commission has any questions for staff or the applicants, we'd be happy to answer those.
Would the applicant like to speak?
Yeah, we just want to,
Come up to the podium and just state your name and address.
There's got to be formal.
yeah, we just want to, we've got a house there that we don't.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Oh, my name's Todd Corbell.
They really mean formal.
Okay. And that's all we're trying to do is get out of our bigger house, split it. We don't need all that land. Our kids are grown and we want to build a smaller house.
Okay,
That's our purpose.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
The property surrounding this place, this fits in with the existing property, there's zoning around it.
Yes, so we have some single-family residential along here, as well as all along here and across the way.
So near as I can see, that fits in with exactly what's been going on over in that area.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there going to be an easement granted to that second parcel if it's split?
Yes.
Because right now, it looks like it's going to be landlocked if it splits.
Right here.
I can't see that.
Sorry.
There's a utility easement on the one side.
Are you talking about the south side?
Yes.
Yeah, as long as there's nothing constructed there, that's fine.
Well, I guess the question is, how are they gonna access the back parcel if there's no easement down through there to do
That
that?
is the easement.
So the utility easement is gonna act as the access easement also, okay. It's kinda hard to read the drawing
I
there.
know, it's hard, they use such small type, but
And then I also anticipate it's going to be on septic and well, because the properties in that area are septic and well.
Anybody else have any questions? You're here anymore? Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the rezoning of this property.
I'll make a motion to forward zoning case 15-003 to town council with a recommendation of approval.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All anybody opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay. Moving forward to non-public hearing action items. Thank you, folks, for coming. Item 7A, consideration of possible action to initiate and conduct public review of text amendments to Chapter 1, Administration Sections 1.7 Site Plan Review Process, 1.8 Enforcement, and 1.9 Review and Approval Processes, and to recommend to council the proposed amendments be approved.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before you, you have a set of proposed text amendments for sections 1.7, 1.8, and 1.9 of the Unified Development Ordinance. This portion of the ordinance deals with site plan review and imposes some review processes that are not how do I say this? That no longer have a basis for their existence under some changes in the law that were made by the legislature. In 2011, the state legislature adopted what's commonly known as SB 1598, which everyone else knows as the Municipal Regulatory Bill of Rights. And the purpose of this bill is to ensure fair and open regulation by municipalities. Many municipalities don't have as transparent a process as other municipalities have. And so to try to standardize some permitting and review processes and streamline application processes, the legislature came out with a new section in 9.8. It's Article 4 of Chapter 7 of the Title 9 of the ARS. So this applies, first of all, to any municipal permit, certificate, approval, or similar form of permission that's required by law. So any building permit, any engineering permit, any zoning approval, any variance application, those are just some of the things that are subject to this new set of rules. It doesn't apply to development of a residential lot. It does not apply to the issuance of a transaction privilege tax or business license. Any license that's issued within 7 days or expires within 21 days, or any municipal inspections requested and scheduled by the regulated person. Whoops. So what this does, stop. There are definite penalties attached to this and some other requirements that are attached to this new legislation. The town has to return application fees or timelines for completeness and substantive review are not met. We are now required to provide applicants copies of inspection reports. We are required to send them updates on a monthly basis if they have an ongoing review process. The municipality cannot base a licensing decision in whole or part on a requirement or condition that is not specifically authorized by statute, rule, ordinance, or code. And it does specifically state that a general grant of authority does not constitute a basis for imposing a licensing requirement. And it also requires that we avoid dual permitting to the maximum extent practicable. So how does that apply to this? The site plan review process that's set forth in section 1.7 was initiated sometime in 2010, but it's never been used. And this is a process that now, with the adoption of the 1598 and the municipal regulations, now has the potential to cause us some problems when it comes to issuing permits and having review periods and timelines. Here's the way it looks right now. So this is the current process. We get somebody in here for a pre-application review. They come in, we want to do this, we're going to build something, and here's our plan. Okay, well then you have to set up a pre-application review meeting.
Now this is only for commercial property.
Correct, it's only for commercial.
Okay.
Right, it does not apply to residential.
Okay.
Did I leave that out? Not residential. Then we set up a pre-application review 2 to 3 weeks later. That's when the site plan is reviewed and we have comments about how the site is arranged and so forth. Then we have to have a site plan review meeting once an application is submitted, then we schedule a site plan review meeting. Once the staff is satisfied that the site plan meets code, it then we have to publish notice for planning and zoning, take it to a planning and zoning meeting, and then on to town council. So we've spent about 75 days, and they still don't have a building permit.
And this process here is even if everything fits exactly into the zoning without any special requirement?
Correct. And this is why we're going to have an issue with this, because if we jump back here, when we're talking about a permitted or a by right use, we have to have uniform zoning that applies the same rules to everybody. And if we are taking site plans and changing the rules for not everybody, then it's not a fair process. Then everybody's not held to the same standard. This applies to any building or buildings at 5,000 square foot or greater in singularly or in combination. There's nothing inherently dangerous about a 5,000 square foot building that would trigger this kind of review. If you were building a shopping mall, if you were building a subdivision, if you were building a master plan community, then more rigorous review is required, and staff has the ability to do that. But just based on 2 buildings that are 2,500 square feet, now all of a sudden we have to have all these additional reviews is kind of a duplicative process, because now we're going to, if you'll look here again. So now we go through this process, all this approval, and now we have to go back and do the technical reviews for building permits, engineering permits, public works, if there's any work in the right-of-way, any drainage or grading or anything like that. So we've essentially doubled the time that this permitting process takes. And that's one of the reasons that this legislation was enacted, was because there were so many complaints about how long it took to get these things processed. So in an effort to be able to comply better with the 1598 regulations, we've instituted a software program that does tracking for us. People can apply for permits online now. You can submit plans online. The minute we have a building inspector on your site and they complete a review or an inspection, they push a button and you get emailed a copy of the report. So you get your inspection report almost immediately. So we're doing what we can to do everything outside of code to fix this. The problem we have is that this is in code, and I can't just go, well, we're not doing this anymore. Like I said, this process was enacted in 2010 and never used, so we need to take this out and replace it with something else, which are the amendments that you have in this document here. The new process, we have a feasibility meeting where the Development Services Director, the building official, and if there's engineering involved, the Public Works Director sits down and meets with an applicant, says, here's what we want for you to be able to submit an application. These are the things that we're looking for. We give them a list. When they have all of that together, they come back and they can submit for the pre-app, or what used to be tech review. We'll go through that process, give them another formalized list, and then we start the submittal and review process. Under 1598, we have to have standard review processes. There's 2 of them that we're required to have. We have to have a completeness review, where we go start to finish through the application and make sure we have all of the pieces of paper that are required. We have a Prop 207 waiver. We have the approval from the health department if there is a septic or a well involved. All of those, we have to check and make sure all of those are there. Once we complete that review, we then send the applicant a notice that says, yes, everything is here. We can go on with a substantive review, which is where we actually get into the technical review issues. Or no, you're missing these things. We're stopping the clock until you submit these items. Once they submit the items, we start it up again. But within 30 days, if they have not responded, then we have to start the whole thing over. Once that the completeness review is complete, then we have to go on to the substantive review, where we look at the actual structural drawings and the footings and the snow loads and engineering things that are required for actually issuing a building permit. This process, at the longest, would take 75 days. And by the time this is done, you have a permit. So we're switching from 75 days and then 75 days, which is the better part of 6 months, to 75 days at the longest. Should somebody submit something for an application for a building permit for a commercial structure, we go through the completeness review in 3 days. It's all there. We're ready to move. We send them a notice and say, great, everything's here. We can move on. And then we go right straight into substantive review. That starts another 30-day clock ticking. So we don't have to wait the whole 30 days, but that's the maximum time we can take. So if we go back here to other issues, the process as it's set forth here is not really just a site plan review, because that's where you're looking at where the buildings are on the site, where the access and egress is, more location things, as opposed to some of the more technical things that the present process has kind of all lumped together. The worst thing that this does is limit the number of people and the titles of the people that can participate in the site plan review. If we have somebody that's coming in, anybody been to like Quailwood or Stone Ridge in Prescott Valley where they have those huge bridges over the washes? If we have to bring in a technical expert on bridges to do the review, there's no allowance for that in the ordinance.
The one exists now.
Right.
Okay.
So it really limits, we're only allowed 9 people, we've got a specific list, it really limits who we need to have present. And the town would need to retain an engineer in that instance so that we have someone looking at it. We're not just taking their engineer's word for it, we have somebody that's competent to review it on our side as well. So that covers pretty much the issues and the reasons why we're bringing this forward. It's part of the whole revamping of the processes and development services to try to get things moving more quickly and to be much more user-friendly. So while we've gutted parts of this, we have left in place review processes. They're just a lot less specific so that we have the latitude we need to get things approved and through the new processes under 1598.
So the final review process through the building department and the engineering department comes at towards the end of the process, so that it's not stalled out in between those areas, because they have to go through the same review no matter what
Exactly.
happens before that.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right, so we're reviewing the site plan, and then we're going back and reviewing it all over again
Right.
here, which is redundant and
Redundant,
duplicative,
time-consuming.
which we're not supposed to be doing anymore. And frankly, like I said, there is nothing inherently dangerous or that presents a threat to public health or safety or welfare in a 5,000 square foot commercial building, or 3 smaller
Well, those issues
ones.
would be handled at the building department.
Correct, those are permitting issues, rather than ordinance issues.
Now, the current process compared to the proposed process, you had the public notice for a P and Z meeting.
Right.
Those would still apply
No.
into the new process, wouldn't they?
They only apply for a final plat or a planned area development. That's the only time that they would apply. For a final plat or a planned area development. So if someone to bring in another Highlands Ranch, then it would apply, because you're talking about approving a final plat. But if you, for instance, if you were to build a new structure on your property to house trucks to repair, it would not apply to that. You would not have to go to P and Z. That's the difference.
It's only if there's a zoning change or a variance change of some,
Right, so those
Something of that
processes, I
stature.
see what you're asking, yes. Those processes, the rezoning process, it does not change. Variance process does not change.
okay.
It's just that we are eliminating the existing site plan review process and replacing it with something that's in conformance with state law.
Okay. But even currently, there is no public notice just to build a new structure?
Right. Like
But
I
you-
said, this
But
was,
you do go through
this was implemented or adopted but never implemented. I've gone back through the records to look at probably 5 or 6 projects, and it's never been used.
okay.
So,
But we would still have hearings like we have had.
right, for public, yes, exactly.
Yeah, the
For
public hearing.
Right, for zoning and all of that kind of stuff, that doesn't change. This is just for, if somebody wants to build a new building, they don't have to go through this entire process if their property is already entitled for that use.
Yeah, it does seem redundant.
It's
That's a good
ridiculous.
word.
So as long as the property and the structures are code compliant and zoning
Correct.
ordinance compliant, there would be no need to review anything because the departments of the town of Chino Valley cover all of that.
Correct. It's already, if it's a use by right or a permitted use, if you have a CL property and you want to build a retail store that's over 5,000 square feet, you can do it without having to get special permission.
Because by rights, you have it anyways.
Right, exactly. You already have that right, and this just further complicates it.
So we have been bypassing that as a town, but now we're just going to make it.
We're going to make it official.
Okay.
I take it we're discussing ordinance 15-798.
I believe that's the correct number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
And we're talking about section 1.7, 1.8, 1.9. 1.8 being totally eliminated.
right.
My question is, I'm looking at it, and it goes 1.9.1.4 approval, it goes A, B. Then at the top of the next page, it says, add to section 2 definitions, subsection 2.1, meaning of words and terms. Don't have a problem with that, but right after that, it has section 4.21, sign regulation. How does that tie into this?
Well, we're just going, what we did was go through the entire UDO, find all the places where it refers to site plan review, and struck all of those.
Okay, I guess my only comment is that we're also working at updating the signs.
Right.
And so whatever we change on the sign requirements should also reflect on the signs that you have pages here for. And then, now that I understand why these other sections show up. at
That
the-
answers a lot of questions?
Well, yeah, it does, but at the very last page,
Uh-huh.
under item B,
D,
B, as in boy,
very last page.
where it says, staff will discuss the proposal with the subdivider, provide input and suggestions regarding procedural steps. And then at the very end, it says, staff will, and it's blank.
Let me see. Let me grab the book.
Looks like something continued on but didn't get printed or something.
Unless 5.24.
B, C, and D.
Well, there should be,
Covers it.
there should be a 3 or something.
Should be
between.
something in there, yeah.
5.2. 5.2, give me a second here. E at site plan. Oh, yes, it goes on to say, check the existing zoning of the track and recommended changes in zoning if necessary or desirable, determine the adequacy of existing or proposed schools, parks, and other public places, inspect the site or otherwise determine its relationship to major streets, utility systems, and adjacent land uses, identify any unusual problems such as those related to topography, utilities, drainage, etc., determine whether a development master plan will be required prior to the preparation of a preliminary plat, and the extent to which the property owner will be required to prepare it.
So basically, what changed is the wordage from committee to staff.
Correct.
Everything else after that stayed the same.
It's all stayed the same.
Because we're actually doing away with the site plan review committee.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's what those changes are all tied to.
Gary, did that answer your question?
It answered my question, and I guess it ought to be expanded so the town council doesn't have the question.
Sure.
And then the very last one, where it says 5.2.4 subdivision technical review, where you strike out for site plan review committee and insert staff, the word for should still be there. I think that's just a typo.
Yeah.
But at least it shows that we read it.
Yep. Yeah, no kidding. Great.
So can we reflect that change there?
Sure. Yeah, we can make those changes because this, all we're doing tonight is reviewing it, giving the public an opportunity to comment, and now it's going to come back to you at a later date for action.
Okay. I know that's a lot of wordage that we didn't have to read through, but we would at least know what it was.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We can make those changes, sure.
Okay, so Anybody else have any comments or questions here? I, for one, like the streamlining part. Being on the wrong end of that a few times.
We're really working on it. No comment.
So, if there's no further questions or comments, I would seek a motion for approval.
Who wants to do that?
Gary's good at that.
Okay. Whenever he's ready.
Oh, okay. I recommend that we set a public hearing date for the amendments to the UDO section 1.9 point, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Wrong one. I recommend we initiate and conduct a public review of text amendment to Chapter 1 Administration, Section 1.7 Site Plan Review Process, Section 1.8 Enforcement, and 1.9 Review and Approval Process. Conduct the public review, and then after the review, we'll address recommending to council that the amendment be approved.
With,
Well, we're going to be doing a public review, so we'll
Right.
see the text again.
and also for the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, so, and then including the corrections that we
Yeah,
asked for.
including the corrections of deleting one strikeout and expanding section 5.2.2B.
That last one.
Okay, I have a motion.
Second?
Okay, a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, moving forward to item 7B, consideration of possible action to initiate and conduct a public review of amendments to the text of the UDO section 1.9.2 subsection E, protests, and set a public hearing date for the amendment at the next regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Before you, you have a brief amendment to Section 1.9.2E of the Unified Development Ordinance. This is the portion in code that talks about protests to zoning actions, and it sets a time frame for submitting protests in writing to the town clerk's office prior to the town council meeting at which that item will be heard. Recently, as we had a public hearing and with planning and zoning where an application was forwarded to town council. A number of the surrounding property owners protested. One of the protest letters was not turned in until after the public comment period was closed. We had no choice but to accept it because neither the state statute nor at that point the UDO set forth any sort of time requirement for turning those in. Subsequently, we are engaged in litigation with that applicant, and in order to avoid this, one of the issues he's brought forth in his suit, we are going to now require that all written protests be submitted to and received by the town clerk's office 3 business days prior to the date of the public hearing.
And that's for the city council public hearing.
Town council, right. There's no protest because because P&Z simply makes a recommendation. The
Okay.
protest only takes place at town council.
What's the time frame now?
There isn't one.
So there is no cutoff date.
There is not one, and that's part of the reason that this is a part of the litigation, is that there is no timeline. And part of the fight is over whether or not some of those letters should have been accepted when they were accepted. Both the law and the Arizona revised statutes and the Unified Development Ordinance and the town code are silent on any sort of timeline or time restriction. So that's why we're including a 3-day limit now so that we have adequate time to make sure that the signatures are correct, make sure that the form of the protest itself is accurate.
Okay. Just as a point of clarification, this is after the zoning change has been posted and public hearings and
Right, so.
and going through Plan and Zoning Commission with our recommendations. So this is, so that if anyone was going to protest, they would have had a chance at the public hearings,
So.
and they
what-
would have had a chance here, and they would have had a number of opportunities before getting to the point of standing up in front of the town council.
Yes, sort of.
Okay.
So when they come here, we have the public hearing, everybody gets up and says their piece. The town, or the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a recommendation to town council to either approve or deny. When they show up at the town council meeting, if 20% or more of the property owners within 150 feet of the property boundary object, then we have to have a supermajority vote. So the protest letters, there is no date on there is no time constraint on when those can be provided to staff. So if we get handed one at the last minute, like during the meeting, we have no way to check whether or not the person on there is the actual owner of record, whether or not the property is within 150 feet. We don't have time to do any checking. But there is nothing in state law that says that the applicant or the person submitting the protest has to do it within a certain time. So because we can make regulations that are more strict than the state law, it is the recommendation of the town's attorney and staff that we implement a 3-day period where you have to turn these letters in 3 days before the public hearing at town council so that we know we have a chance, and quite frankly, the applicant has a chance to verify that these people that are protesting do own property within 150 feet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.
So is 3 business days enough time?
Yes.
Okay. So right now, what we're saying is after it's been through all of the public hearings and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and just before it goes to the city council, town council, that you have up to 3 days before the town council meeting to file a letter of protest.
Correct.
After that time, your letter of protest will no longer be accepted, and that gives you time to verify authenticity and location, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that?
No, because this isn't just a hypothetical that happened.
Yes.
You did, yeah, yes.
So,
I've seen times in here where we've received letters the night we come to the meeting.
Right.
Of people either for or against, and it's kind of disconcerting for us to try to stumble through that right before the meeting.
Right. I mean,
well, it can still happen as far as.
On the
this-
zoning it can,
Yes.
but for the town council, that's a permanent decision there, so they need that time.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, any more discussion? I would entertain a motion for this, approval of this review process.
Gary, you're doing a fine job.
I'm doing a fine job. Okay,
Not everybody all at once now.
Yeah.
I recommend that we conduct a public review of amendments to the text of the UDO section 1.9.2 subsection E, protests, and set a public hearing date for the amendment at the next regular meeting of the Plan and Zoning Commission.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, item 8, discussion items. Anybody have anything they'd like to discuss with anybody in the room? Moving forward, public comments. We had somebody step in that looks like public. Do you have a comment, sir? All right.
Hey,
No public comments. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I so move.
In a second?
I second.
You wanted me to make the motion, I made the motion.
Okay.
All right, thank you, folks.
Hit the gavel.